He's football's running man, and for nearly 20 years, he's run the legs off the best of them. The oldest man in footy, the longest serving, and one of its most decorated sons. Relive the great moments in a truly memorable career in Craig Bradley, a tribute. The premierships, the mugs, the goals, the milestones.
The legend of the Carlton Football Club, Craig Bradley.
Craig Bradley, a tribute, is out on video. The perfect Father's Day gift at these stores now. This is the video that was over 10 years in the making. This is the story of the man destined to become the AFL's longest-serving captain. This is Captain Kernahan. The highlights, the stories, the career. It's a video collector special with all the vital statistics, plus the famous stories from on and off the field. Meet the man behind the reputation. Get Captain Kernahan at these stores now.
Silvagni, he's just got better the further the game's gone, and it's frustrated Tony Lockett.
Being able to play with a group of blokes and enjoy your victories. I think when you come off the field and you've really given 100%, and you know your teammates have, to come off the field and you've had a win is probably what you play footy for.
He's like an eel, isn't he? The way he winds his way around his opponent.
He worked hard, he did the desperate things on the ground. He never shirked a training session. He played with injuries. Why wouldn't you love him?
Gets it to Williams. Williams outside 50, centering kick. Silvagni has a run, takes a specky.
Oh, I think his pain barrier is pretty good.
Loves his foot.
Yeah. He'd go out with, I think, with a broken leg if he could.
Well played by Silvagni.
Silvagni and Carlton. Since 1958, it's been a union. Unique and unmatched in football. The merging of family and club, embodied by the two men as father and son, together but separate as champions at their own respective generations. Serge Silvagni was 9 years into a 239-game career when his first and only son was born. And it wasn't long before Stephen's desire emerged, to follow in his father's footsteps.
My dream was to play AFL footy, or VFL footy when it was then. It's really all I really wanted to do as a kid. I'd come home from school and I'd kick the ball out on the road, and it didn't help me to kick well, but but yeah, I always wanted just to have a footy in my hand and do that type of thing. So obviously that was sort of woke up, and Serge always told me, you know, like, footy's not going to be there. Like, what happens if you don't make it, or you know, that type of stuff. You know, it's tough, and he always played it very low key.
He played tackers football. He was about an 8-year-old, and it was the first game, and you could just see that he could read where the ball was going. Most kids just chase the ball in a big pack, and he'd just sit off it and then just come through and read it. And they wanted to say, oh, gee, this kid can play, we'll put him up in the under-10s. And I said, nah, he'll just play his tackers, and then he'll play his age group when he's old enough.
Courtesy of Serge's playing and coaching, Stephen was immersed in football's culture earlier than most, with some of the game's greats as his first teachers.
Serge was always a great friend and a mentor of mine. Serge is 10 years older, but we played together in grand finals and shared a lot of great times, so there was always the strength of that relationship. And I can remember Stephen as just a kid coming down for Sunday training, and Serge would bring him along, and you'd see him grow up through the stages there.
So on the Sunday mornings they used to sit in on the players, dissecting each other's performance on the Sunday morning, which was absolutely ruthless. And if you know the culture of the club at Carlton and the way, and the acid tongue of a McClure, Mackay, Buckley, and those guys, they used to carve each other's performance up if there was a glitch or a weakness or a mistake. And he's picked that up.
This will be a long one. It's a beautiful goal by Wayne Hart. Great goal.
I mean, you got to imagine a kid being 8, 9, 10 years of age, and you know you're walking around again alongside Alex Jezelenko and Bruce Stool and Mark McClure, Wayne Johnson, and these. And I barracked for Carlton, so you know every time, like after a game now, you sit down and you're getting unchanged and whatever, and these little kids walk in the room and they're looking at the players, the cooters and these type of things, and I cast my mind back 20 years ago basically, and I was there all the time. How fortunate I was that I was able to mix it with some of those great players.
Screws it back towards the goal square. Here's Stephen Silvagni, picks it up, slides it through. Another goal to Marcelin. There's 6-1, 37, Assumption 3-2, 20. And there's young Stephen Silvagni, son of the Carlton veteran Surge.
He carried the lessons of the early years through to his time at Marcelin College, playing school football against the likes of Gary Lyon, Gavin Brown and Bill Brownlee.
Off the ground. Silvagni with a good hand pass. Here's another goal perhaps. Setting it up. Gavin Brown, his third, and Marcelin moved further ahead. 17-5.
There was actually a time where I really grew. It was probably at the age of 13, 14, and I really became uncoordinated. And just remember, I'd be running along and I'd be kicking the inside of my ankle, like pigeon-toed, and it was just really frustrating to not be able to do things when your mind's telling you to do stuff. And I'd just gone through a massive growth spurt, and I'd really dropped off. Like, I was terrible. Times I'd miss the ball and whatever, so that was a worry.
I'd like to congratulate Assumption on they fought it out to the end, and their coach...
Stephen almost had to grow into his body to get used to it. Whatever happened, it was only a matter of time before the Blues beckoned, and for the comparisons with his father to begin.
Silvagni wins a keenly contested mark to stem a dangerous thrust and puts the Blues into an attacking position.
When I arrived at Carlton, I just considered myself as any other young guy starting out, and I did everything they did, and I think I was fortunate that it only sort of took me 6 reserves games before I made senior footy. So, and then I played the remaining 13, 14 games, whatever it was that season. So I probably established myself fairly quickly, which made it a lot easier. So that pressure of having to, carry the name or being Surge's son wasn't there.
Oh, it's a shocking kick. Oh, that is bad play by Zantuck. An easy mark taken by Steve Silvagni, the ex-Marcelin College schoolboy.
I think being the son of a Carlton and AFL legend, there'd be enormous pressure initially, but it's a testament to Serge and to SOS himself, just the way that he's just evolved, and it's got to a stage now where he's just an outright champion of his own ilk, and both of them are, and that's how they're looked upon.
Sergio Silvagni being lifted high, his last game of league football.
To have a father that's played senior footy and played quite a bit of footy and be reasonably successful at it, for him to be able to give me the guidance along the way that. And obviously, fathers probably know their sons better than anyone, and he knows when I'm probably not going 100% or I'm not doing things right, I should do something a bit different. To have that guidance, and it's not as if he basically told me what to do. There were suggestions that maybe I should be doing something a bit differently or whatever. And it's just to have that influence as a youngster. Particularly, I think was a real benefit for me to be able to sort of push on and go the distance of playing so many games at Carlton.
As fate would have it, the number 1 worn by his father was available to be handed down. A new chapter in the Silvagni story had commenced.
Yeah, I can remember receiving my first jumper. Oh, they had a dinner, so I think the Tuesday before the first game. So, and I was given the #1 jumper, which was, huge, really, because all the kids I was starting out with were getting number 52, 55 and 60. And here I was given #1, so, it was probably a bit of a joke at the table at the time, but listen, I was fortunate to be given a number.
By 1985, and despite his young age, Stephen's chances of being picked for the seniors were becoming stronger. But Serge was on the selection committee under David Parkin at the time.
So I was a bit apprehensive of him starting as a 17-year-old. I just wasn't too keen. I just wanted to come out of school. I just wanted to be mature a bit, physically even, and be an 18 or 19-year-old before he started senior football.
Bradley back into the breeze. Silvagni!
Stephen finally convinced his father that he should go over the line, and he looked from the first moment a natural for the game, and has gone on to become, I think, one of the great people. If you want role models for sport, and Australian football needs them like any other sport.
There's Templeton over the back. Not had a good day. Rodney Wright tries to get it away. Silvagni.
I kept away from him as much as I could. You'd never see me in the rooms in a game having a chat to him. I'd always do it through a third person if I had something to say to him. So it'd be a Stephen Goff or a Cole Kinnear, later on a Rod Ashman. If I had something to say to him, I'd like, hey, why don't you try this, why don't you try that? It'd always be through a third person. I'd never be there in front of people laying the law down or tell him to do things.
Serge wasn't alone in his initial apprehension.
I always thought, I was worried him getting hurt or worried him playing well, and so I was more worried on that side of things. But you just sort of you were proud at the same time that he was sort of trying to achieve something.
Collins gives it on to Buckenau, who hooks it over the shoulder. Good play by Silvagni, a lovely mark.
She's seen most of my games and a hell of a lot of Serge's games. She loves her footy. She thinks she's an expert, and we'll let her think back.
I think he's down.
Sometimes your heart is in your mouth. You sort of what does he do that for? You sort of worry about it, but that's his game. And you can't. Sometimes I say to him, what did you have to do that for? Especially now that he's getting a bit older. So he's not young anymore. But, that's the way he plays.
The female family influence was hard for both Serge and his son to escape.
3 sisters and also my mother, so that's 4 girls that both Serge and I had to put up with over the years, and probably even got worse when we ended up getting dog, and it was female as well.
There's a kick in towards centre half forward, and Robert Balls is marked. Great play by Carlton. He steps around Potter, places into an open goal. Look at this! There's another one!
A year after his debut, a former club champion returned to coach.
Steve was just a skinny teenager. I'd seen him develop and grow as a kid because obviously Serge is a great friend, and I'd seen young Stephen come through, but I didn't know too much about him as a footballer.
Silvagni has a chance to get, yes, he got into the back of corner.
What Walls did know was his conviction that fledgling players should first ply their trade in the back line.
It drops in short. Silvagni, great play by Stephen Silvagni, backed himself, gathers the football and gives the hand pass off to Robinson.
I've always had a belief that young fellows, and I guess I go back to the Fitzroy days when I had a young Gary Pert and a young Paul Roos and Richard Osborne, I started all of them in the back line. Just think it's a little bit easier when the play coming towards you. And you don't get knocked around as much as a defender because you're the one who's doing the spoiling and the punching. They're not coming in on top of you. So I looked at Stephen and I just thought an ideal apprenticeship would be to play back pocket, full back, and that's what we did.
Silvagni well up from full back. Great play, Stephen Silvagni. Capper is 100 metres away.
When I was young, I never thought I'd be a backman. Never in my wildest dreams, but when you go to a footy club, you just, or particularly at senior level, you're just so happy to get a game. So whether they put you in the back pocket, full back, wherever, on the bench, you know, doesn't worry you. But going down to Carlton, I never thought I'd play in the back line. I always saw myself as a forward. But, you know, when I got the opportunity to play senior footy and I was in the back half, I was wrapped.
For Harms to drive the ball well over the centre line. He does. Hunter down there on the forward line. He must be a bit worried about that injury. Going to his Silvagni shows a lot of courage there and a lot of class as he drives the ball.
A fight with glandular fever limited match time in the early part of 1986, but the young Silvagni fought back. He played in September and Carlton made it through to the grand final. Selection to play Hawthorn, though, wasn't as straightforward as it seemed.
Silvagni, well done.
I ended up playing the next sort of 13 games straight, including 2 finals. And, you know, got to the grand final and ended up getting dropped for the grand final, which was, you know, a pretty tough time for a 19-year-old kid that, you know, really just loved playing footy back there, and footy was basically my life.
He'd been part of the team for most of the year, and to be dropped for the grand final, he was only a teenager, it broke his heart. And it gave me no joy doing that, but you obviously pick the team that you think is the right one, and Stephen was the one who missed out.
I believe it should have been Robin, the match committee, or the chairman of selectors, but it was him. Looking back on it now, not at the time, but looking back, you know, it's a pretty tough decision for any coach to do. And he just basically said, listen, you know, you're out of the side, you've had injuries. I had a crook shoulder as well, but, you know, you've been crook and, you know, you're out of the side, you know. And, you know, listen, I can't really recall what I'd said, but, you know, I walked out and went out into, you know, basically the changing room, and just people knew, because you knew that every time someone got called into the coaching room, well, he was out of the side, so they knew I was out of the side. So, and I'm standing there, and it just felt as though the room had collapsed on me, because you could see people were looking, but they weren't looking, and I just had to get out of there. So I basically jumped in my car and sort of took the long way home, and, you know, that was the night basically.
He kept out of it, Mum was on his side.
Mum was going with him all the way, but I had to do the balance thing, like knowing, being involved in match committee and knowing that he was on the fringes and the way they were thinking. You sort of had to prepare him, which he wasn't listening. No. So, you know, you might make it. It's just expected, you know, if you make it, it's a bonus. Yet keep him up to the expectations that he was playing in the final. So the final decision on him being in the team wasn't made until the Thursday night before the grand final.
Kicks it off the ground, it's going close, it'll bounce in for goal. Oh,
with Stephen on the sidelines, the Blues went into battle.
Look for Buckenara. Buckenara marks and plays on 50 metres out. He'll just about kick this. It's long, it's just about there, and he's gone through, I think. Left foot, Dool in front of Dunstall. Dunstall gets in front of him, and how did he do that? That shot is a goal! Oh, what a ripper!
Into the second quarter by 13.5 minutes. Reece James has got a chance to score a goal here. A long shot, and look at this one go. It's a goal.
Dorotich in front. Brereton can't get clear. Well played, Dorotich. Out comes Dunstall with a snapshot. Might be through. It's a goal. Scored an elusive goal in the final quarter out for Dunstall. He's kicked 5 around Dool. Great tackle by Dool, but Dunstall brushes it aside. This might be the one that they needed. And finally they break the ice in the ninth quarter. 6 goals to Jason Dunstall. Knocked down by Deere on this occasion. There's the siren.
The Hawks won by 42 points in a sorry farewell for Bruce Dool, the only man whose career spanned both Serge and Stephen's eras. For the younger Silvagni, it was a lesson on the game's sometimes brutal reality.
It knocked him around, I've got no doubt about that. And to his credit, he went back and played in the reserves grand final and played well. And that was the same day as the senior grand final. But maybe in the long run it was good for him, because I'm sure that he never took for granted his position in the team and how important it was to have a chance to play in finals, let alone a grand final.
You know, that they made a decision. So I don't blame the coach, or, you know, like looking back, at the time I was probably blaming the coach, but as the years go on, you learn and know how things operate. And, you know, you get a lot wiser and know reasons why things are done. And, you know, it's a tough call for anyone to do.
Perhaps trying to find Hunter, who overruns the ball.
1986 was a turning point in many ways. In particular, it brought Stephen together with some gun recruits from across the South Australian border, forming a core of players that would carry the club through the next decade.
40 metres out, set sail for goal, try that one on for goal of the day!
I think Craig Bradley's probably been my best mate. Spent a lot of time with him away from footy, but the guys that I probably went through with from when I started in 1985, Mil Hanna, and there was Jamie Dunlop that was there. You know, the guys you start off with, you remember those guys particularly because you were young, and you know, you sort of you hung around together as a young kid. But along the way, you know, you become closer with guys that are brought into the club. I mean, you know, Stephen Kernahan and Greg Williams and Peter Dean, who I played, you know, a lot of footy with and played next to a hell of a lot.
First meetings with SOS in the early days were just this gangly young bloke who used to be like a rubber man when he played footy, taking the specky marks and just sort of just a real gangly. Short haircuts, and now he's bigger and bulkier, and you know, just had such a distinguished career.
To think that he and Bradley are still playing together 15 years later, it's incredible.
The ball is now on their half-forward line. Lynch is well tackled by Silvagni.
Yeah, glandular fever, I think, as a kid when I first got here. And we were mates with him when Peter Motley, Craig Bradley and myself came over. We mates with SOS because he's around our... Well, he's a bit younger than us, but he was trying to break in the side as a kid then. And the one thing we all said about him, he never trained. He was a great player from day one. He never trained all the time. We were saying, when are we going to get this bloke out on the track? He was always injured or crook with the flu or glandular fever or something. But he certainly turned that around later on.
Silvagni boots it clear up to Bradley.
I don't think you ever think that you'll still be playing. You know, having started such a long time ago, that you just don't plan on these things. But the way it's evolved, you know, we've been best mates sort of from day one, and it's great. And I'd hate, you know, I can't imagine him not playing, you know, with me. So just to look around and see him out there, he's fantastic for me.
That's the Silvagni we know.
All I know about SOS is that he's one of the great rauders. You know, he can get a car for nothing. He can get clothes for nothing. He gets everything, you know, just about the right price. He's very good at that. He's got a great, his network's fairly solid around the place.
He's got a lot of quirks about his game, his preparation and everything like that. He's very stringent on his, I mean, he's always, the night before he has his fish and chips, he's pretty stringent on that. And he's always taken his, you know, his asthma stuff, so he's all right with his asthma, and very quiet before a game, especially the big games when he's got to stand some, you know, the big full forwards, Lockett and Carey and these blokes, you can't get a word out of him. But at the same time, you know that he's going to do the job, because you know when you can't talk to him that he's just in the zone.
The next year, tragedy befell the club, not once, but twice. Peter Motley was fortunate to escape with his life in a car accident, but would never again take the field. While dual premiership player Des English was waging a battle against leukemia. For Stephen, though, it was the season he truly arrived.
Wide, the lead coming out there from Dunstall. Punched away again by Silvagni. It's been a great duel.
Probably in the 87 season, I felt that he belonged out there and he could cope physically. There was always a question mark about his stamina, about his endurance. Looking back on it, you know, he had quite a few illnesses as a teenager. He had glandular fever and so on. And that obviously robbed him of the ability to to play out games.
Again, Elvin used his body beautifully. Silvagni playing well.
To become a successful side and have and be part of a really good team, you've got to have that mateship there. I mean, you've got to be prepared to sort of sacrifice your game to allow your mate to get possession or have a good game. So I think it's pretty important that I know the successful sides I've played in that the mateship is there, and you're prepared to put yourself on the line to help your teammate be successful himself.
Fuelled on emotion, Carlton finished the year on top of the ladder and came face to face with their nemesis from the previous season.
Battling very, very well. There's Matt getting it out to Elvin. Now Bradley and young Pritchard. Bradley knocks it on. Great pace, Bradley. He straightens up. He fires. It comes back. And he goals. With the long arms, he's able to take the mark. It's a big advantage, that great height of his, as he brings it towards half forward. The Hawthorn defenders try and get away with it. Beautiful play, Dorotich. Oh, geez, a bounce to Melbourne. This is a goal. Yes! Big heart in the air a minute ago. There's a lovely kick to Brereton. He should mark this. Oh, he didn't mark it because Reece Jones put him under enormous pressure. Down the middle.
Kernahan's in front, waiting behind almost to mark to Johnston. He does well, gets a hand pass across to Robertson. He's upended. Hand pass comes out then from Pritchard. Back comes Robertson. Robertson scrambles a kick to Bradley. Bradley feigns the hand pass, stabs Goldwood, puts it through.
Tough task now. Let's see if they can come back. Half forward, here they come again, the Blues. Kernahan now gets into the action. He kicks a goal, is it another one? Yes, goal.
Dean on the overlap, the man who could be contending for the North Smith medal. That's Reece Jones. Through he comes. Kicks it long towards half forward. Meldrum is down there. Knocked away, but again no ground support. Daly just runs away from three Hawthorn players. He's going Goldwood, Mark Daly. He's put it through. Still some time. Hand passes it wide. Buckenara gets around the oncoming traffic. Back to Kennedy, who kicks it to Silvagni. Well, the confidence, the poise is gone from Hawthorn. As Silverwood bounce, they've got the numbers down there, and now a chance for Fraser Murphy. Breaks away, goes Goldwood, and gets it. Kennedy, opposed to Green. Green did it brilliantly. There's the siren. Robert Walls is elated. With him is Wes Lofts. And Carlton are premiers for 1987. An outstanding.
Yeah, the boys have lost in 1986, and we've got to the grand final in 87. And they'd worked pretty hard, and a few things hadn't gone right along the way. So we had a lot to play for. One was losing the grand final the year before, so guys wanted to redeem themselves. And two, you had two very special people in Des English and also Peter Motley who'd gone through the tragedies of that year. In 87, so we weren't only playing for ourselves, we were playing for two guys that meant so much to the club and the team, and also your supporters. So that was probably the focus of running out on the ground, and one of the key reasons why we probably played so well on the day.
Two unfortunate guys.
Motley, English and even Dool were not forgotten in the celebrations.
Lights, Daisy, the fucking Bernie, beautiful.
We've all sort of been part of or know someone that has gone through a bit of a rough spell, but it just probably teaches you or not to expect something's going to happen straight away, or it's going to come easy to you. I mean, something can be taken away with you as quick as a flash.
Walls departed the club in 1989, and despite the omission of 86 still hurting, Silvagni acknowledges his influence.
Rob's probably the one bloke that's probably had the most influence and probably taught me the most, even though he was very, very hard. He probably rode me quite a bit, and at the time I didn't really enjoy it. And I suppose no one really enjoys being ridden or it's feeling though someone's on your back the whole time. But I can honestly say that the way he coached has certainly probably made the end of my career a hell of a lot easier, purely because he was quite honest in probably telling me where my weaknesses were and what I had to do, and there's no question that sort of I've addressed those issues, particularly more so after he had left the club than while he was there.
Out wide to Murphy. Stephen Silvagni's on the forward line playing at full forward. It's in his direction and past him. Pearce sprints after it. Keeps the ball in. Here's Silvagni in the goal square. Oh, terrific play. Great goal, Silvagni. Well done.
Has dropped it, lets Wilson in. Here's Sumic and Silvagni. Sumic, Silvagni, a brilliant, oh yes, a one-handed mark.
He could have played anywhere, but I think top line fullbacks are very rare. And as a coach, me, and then later David Parkin, just to be able to slot the name Silvagni in at fullback and know that he could play on anyone, and I'm talking plugger-sized players, to the smaller, more nimble type players. Stephen could cope with players of any size, any ability, and to be able to just put him in at fullback and say, well, look, he can take on whoever comes his way. For a coach, it's a real luxury.
Silvagni, brilliantly done.
I can remember the day Carlton played the Saints down at Moorabbin. I think it was 89. St Kilda beat us by a goal. Plugger kicked 10. I kept Stephen on plugger all day, and pretty tough day for a young fella to play on plugger who was absolutely dominating. And I think at the end of the game, a lot of people thought, well, you crucified the kid by playing him on plugger for the entire 4 quarters. I got no doubt if I'd have played somebody else on plugger, he would have kicked 15.
In the late 80s, he was at his physical peak.
Silvagni takes championship! Wonderful!
But after a club best and fairest in 1990, the weight of injuries started to take their toll. Much of the next 2 seasons were lost to knee and ankle problems.
The leg go down like that.
Club champion last year and such a brave player.
Yeah, he's just reckless, isn't he, the way he plays his football? I mean, it's to be commended, but...
At the same time, the player was reunited with his first mentor when Parkin returned once more.
When you go out and play your first season of footy, your first coach has so much of a bearing on how you go about things, and he could tell you to run through a brick wall and you'd run through a brick wall, you know. You just wanted to do the right thing for him. And to have him come back in 1991, you know, I was just so rapt that he was coming back, and just really looking forward to playing some good footy under him. And it took us to a winning grand final in 1995, and you know, that was fantastic to sort of complete something that, you know, he'd given me the opportunity to play, and I owed him a hell of a lot. And you know, he's just had such a bearing on my career, and you know, had so many good times under him.
Long kick towards Salmon. Silvagni, sensational.
It's like, you know, what do you need me to do, rather than setting this up so that it'll be a bit easy for me, Stephen, to be taking the hard road or the hard role or doing the tough thing or whatever was required. He'd understand it and put his hand up for it straight away. That's the best kind of leadership you can have in professional sport, is the one that says, look, I'll show the way.
Fly, Gleeson may try and thread his way through. He does so. Well done, Adrian Gleeson, off to Silvagni. Forced to use the left.
And by 1993, and with Silvagni fit, Carlton had reached another grand final. This time against a young Essendon side, Sheedy's Baby Bombers.
Away goes Michael Long. 50 metres out. Still going. 30 metres out. Oh, what play! It may have been touched on the line.
I did touch it, but you know, that's past. I mean, it was a great goal by Michael Long. I mean, you know, there's those type of things happen all the time, and you know, it wasn't a turning point.
They don't want this. This will sting. Kelthorpe's shot for goal. It's on the line. It's through. Kelthorpe replies for the Bombers.
There's no question that Essendon were the best team on the day. I mean, they ended up beating us by what, 9-10 goals. I can't even remember, but. You know, they were pretty hot on the day.
There's the bounce, Somerville, and there's the siren. Victory for the Bombers.
2 years later, and again in the thick of the September drama, Silvagni turned in one of the great finals performances. First against Darryl White and then Wayne Carey. In the grand final, Gary Ablett awaited.
And then take the mark and then proceed forward. He's kicking towards full forward. Gee, they teamed up on Ablett there.
Here comes Williams. He's got Paul, goes underground with the hand pass. Gives it away towards Paul, who's back on the ground. Camporelli couldn't take it. Williams again. He gives it to Pearce. Onto the right foot goes Brad Pearce. Oh, this is another nail. He's still forward at the 50. Now passes in towards the forward pocket. And he wanted out. Silvagni's too good. Away he comes.
Another by Dean again. Clappe, short one. Dean's on it. Can he kick a goal? Peter Dean. He's jumped after he kicked the football. It may go through. It's marked by Williams. He's going to get the goal anyway. Greg Williams has got it for the Blues. Back to Pearce. Pearce from the left foot. Usually pretty good. Towards full forward. Mack was in the action. The ball spills. Camporelli. Snapshot by Camporelli. It's home.
Blues have scored 3 goals this quarter. The Cats have been able to score 1. Look at this defence again as Christie goes charging on the
Play. In goes McKay. Can he get past Couch? He goes after it again. Desperate stuff by McKay. That has been the trademark of the Carlton performance. Bradley's kick. Williams there. Right in front. 20 metres.
Williams could be the target. Ablett is with him. The 2 champs. Silvagni in for the assist. Silvagni will give it to Williams. He does. Over the top he goes to Whitehead. Whitehead from 35. Finishes off with a goal. Way to wrap Carlton around and fumble again. Towards Silvagni on the half-back flank. Metres in front of Ablett. He takes the mark and plays on. Gets around the camp champion. And kicks
He has been a terrific player. Over 200 games. Hasn't missed many in his entire career. And that kick is a goal.
It's all over for the Cats and the celebration's about to start for Carlton. It's just sinking in.
The combined tally kicked on him was 1 goal for the entire series.
I just did my job on each of those games. I don't think they were outstanding games. Like, I look back and these games I played, but they were a lot better games than I actually performed in that 95 grand final series or 95 final series. But I did my job, and I think that's the way you want to approach a final series, that you don't have to be the best player. But if you can do your job and everyone does their job on that given day, you're a mighty big chance of winning what you have to win.
He'd done it all carrying a debilitating shoulder injury, but there was no question of not playing.
What's to say they weren't injured? I mean, that's the thing. Some of the great players you play on, and you might go out there injured and whatever, there's more likely than not that they're injured also. I don't reckon there's too many players that go out and play footy these days that haven't got, particularly if you play up against a player that's a real body player that isn't carrying an injury. You know, come halfway through the year, they're carrying something. There's so many players that go out and play with injuries that require surgery at the end of the day, and you learn to cope with what you've got to cope with, and that happens every year. There was no chance I was not going to play in the grand final.
At the age of 28, Stephen had equalled another of his father's feats with his 2nd premiership.
I think in '95, I probably even had to work even harder. The fact that we hadn't won one for 8 years or 9 years, and we lost in 1993, and you're getting around 30 years of age, and you're just thinking, well, maybe I'm not going to play in one again. And to be able to win 1995 and be one of the senior blokes back then was really rewarding. When you've played in your first one and then a second one comes along and it's been a while since you've got there, you really appreciate that time again, that you go, well, I'm going to remember this because it doesn't come along every day. So when we played in 1995, you just, after the game, I sat there and just made sure I absorbed it all in and really appreciated the moment.
By the end of 1997, Stephen's captain and great friend, Stephen Kernahan, had decided to call it a day after 251 matches. The baton of the leader had to be passed. And while some thought Silvagni was the man for the job, it went to his other close mate, Craig Bradley.
I'd like to see him captain Carlton one day. He's great. He helps me out all the time, and I mean, in stressful times, when you look around and you see his face there, it's very comforting, and you have a bit of a laugh at times as well.
Whitnell's getting rucker overtime stats also with 7 touches of a footy.
How did Silvagni get that? How did Stephen Silvagni
this one,
get
the
that? That was absolutely amazing. It's a goal to the Blues.
Because of his personal credentials and his ability to show the way, he was always going to fulfil some leadership role. I think on occasions with Bradley's absence, he's been able to lead the team, and I think that's wonderful. I think that's probably the one thing that I might have hoped in the last couple of years, but Bradley has hung on so well that it wasn't going to be. But it would have been a great thing for him and the club if Stephen had actually been able to take up the role as captain.
We had a lot of leaders, and SOS, he looks after the back line. Him and Peter Dean did a hell of a lot during my time, and I mean, SOS's actions, they speak louder than any words he said, but when SOS has something to say, the whole lot, it's a bit like when Greg Williams was talking, everyone listened when SOS got something to say, so he's got a huge influence on the side, not only in actions, but also when he speaks.
One-on-one Silvagni, and straight Silvagni! Oh, what a great mark against Shanahan.
Showed Young 70 metres out. This is where they need a big mark. A huge pack of players waiting down in front with Rice. His kick is a pull-up, straight to Wallace. The mean bad man. Can he cover himself in glory? He's lost it, and Murphy takes it away. That could be the turnover that cost them. The luck of the draw in the final. This is just an incredible comeback by the Carlton Football Club.
They are into the grand final. Carlton is into the grand final.
The ultimate success eluded the Blues the next time they made it to that last day in September. But Stephen was far from disgraced in 1999, as Carlton's best in a 35-point loss to the Kangaroos.
King to himself, and then a dangerous kick. Doesn't quite get it outside 50. Ratton with a real chance. Lines him up, goes for it, and he's going to kick the first goal. Brett Ratton.
Charging at him with Bradley, and he gets him. Back again to Harvey. The Kangaroos go surging down towards Silvagni, and Carey, and it's Silvagni who reigns supreme. Great start by the fullback of the century.
Bathed in sunshine now, the Melbourne Cricket Ground. He bombs away to the square. It's still alive. Matthew Lapham's kicked the goal for the Blues.
McKernan must impose himself on the match. Scholl goes. McKernan loads it up and gives it a run. Kicks the goal. Joking, imposing yourself.
Chance now the Blues. Bradley receiving from Hamill. Kicks the ball towards half forward. Lappin. He's got to get this and score a goal, Matthew Lappin. That's what he's paid for. That's what he's gone and done. 2 goals to Lappin.
Allison has to run, and he does. The wobbly old bounce. He's going to go. He goes to the end. The door opens for Silvagni. He can't pick it up. Well done by Silvagni. He's got it.
Simpson, terrific tackle through defeaters. Little kick didn't go far. Good body work. Little give was good. Simpson loads it up, goes to full forward. Sexton's at the back, pushes it away from Wells to Abraham. Winnie's going to throw it and a kick of goal. Terrific start for the Kangaroos.
Chance for Camporelli, but kick forward again by Simpson. Simpson has got to be a contender for this best on ground grand final. Scholl over the top unselfishly. Motlop for his second.
What about Shannon Grant?
As the time ticks down, and the Kangas have won a 4th premiership. Well done, Dennis Pagan. You deserve everything you've got today, and so does your club.
He'd reached the twilight years of a glittering time in the spotlight, and kept pushing on. Having already passed Serge's games tally, the 300-game milestone came in 2001 against Richmond, and he marked it with his own sons, Jack and Ben.
300 games wasn't something I'd strove for. You know, it was obviously great to get there, but I believe if I played 200 games of great footy and I played 300 games of okay footy, I'd much rather 200 games of great footy.
In a mark of respect, the Tigers summed up the mood of the football world when they paid their vanquished opponent a tribute, rare in the modern era of the game.
Well, that gives me shingles to see that. That is a wonderful mark of respect for a great champion of AFL football.
Really, it shouldn't have been a surprise for the player named as the full-back of the 20th century.
The great players in league footy, and I've had some wonderful players like the Lee Matthews and the Wayne Johnsons and the Mike Fitzpatricks, and there's a lineage of them who sense the moment in the game. And there are times in games where the next action or the swing of the pendulum is going to happen by somebody doing something quite significant at that time. And I think SOS is another one who could understand when the game had reached that point and was off his own bat able to do something quite sensational in the game.
And this time he gives it elevation and direction, but Silvagni right on the line takes a screamer.
You might do something on the field and you get a pat on the back for doing something. I think and it might have been a smother or a tackle or something like that, but I think everyone who plays the game and someone recognises the fact that you might have done a little, a 1%er, but they've run 30, 40 yards to give you a tap on the back. I think that's all you need, that type of recognition.
Having started with the likes of Dool, McClure, Hunter and Johnson, and continuing through alongside Bradley, Kernahan and Williams, it's a struggle to pick the best of his teammates.
Best player I've ever, it's a tough call because I really appreciate the guys I've played next to down back, and then I appreciate the great players that have played midfield and also up forward. So I think it's unfair because you play with so many great players at a club, and to say he's the best at your footy club would be unfair.
Nominating the toughest opponent is just as difficult a task.
I think they've all beaten me on occasions, and how do you say who's the best? Because how do you judge it? The fact that you might have played on a fellow that is regarded as one of an all-time great and one of the great players, you might have had the better of him on, say, 8 of the 11 occasions, right? But yet, the 3 occasions that he's beaten you, he's played the absolute best footy, like just unstoppable footy. Yet, do you classify him as the best player, or a guy that's beaten you on 8 out of 11 occasions, but beaten you? How do you gauge what's the best?
As a full-back in an era containing some of the greatest full forwards in history, there was no let-up. Every week there was another tough opponent and another difficult job to be done.
To play in an era where there's Lockett, Ablett, Dunstall, it's just, it was just awesome. I mean, and then you throw in Carey, Hurd, Gary Lyon, and there's a guy, Kernahan, that I didn't have to play with. And then you had Paul Salmon, and then you had Severio Lockett, and then there was Modra, and then there was Sumich. I mean, it was, and then you had a guy that like Jakovic, basically. They just kept up coming from every week. You come up against a player that was either an absolute, sensation, champion, or you come up against a freakish player. And it's just, also Matthew Richardson. So there was never a week that you could say, okay, I'm up against a half easy one here.
With his dual premierships, state representation, selection in the national side to play Ireland, and multiple All-Australian Guernseys, passing on the accumulated years of knowledge to his younger teammates became a priority when the new millennium rolled around.
Target. Those long arms keeps the ball in front.
Just come back and kick a goal.
Silvagni can kick a goal. 35 metres out. Silvagni bangs it through.
When I started my career, you know, there were guys like Des English and Bruce Stool and Kenny Hunter, Mark McClure, these type of guys. So it's just something you've got to take up along the way. I mean, people before you have put so much time into your career. So, I mean, as you get older, you've got to start putting a bit back in developing the kids and hopefully show them the right way for those kids so they can pass it on in years to come to the younger kids that come through with them.
Away from the game, the presence of his wife Jo always attracted interest. A former model and television host herself, it was a union between two of Melbourne's best-known faces, built on solid foundations and carrying on Stephen's belief in the importance of the family unit.
Yeah, I just met her out one night and you know, she offered to take me out to dinner one night and I said, no, I'll meet you up. I'll meet you. She actually went to RMIT where I went to uni. So, and I stood her up actually. And then sort of didn't see her for 2 years later. And then she came along to the footy to watch us play footy one night with a mutual friend of ours. And sort of all happened after that. And you know, basically was with her for about 6 or 7 years before we ended up getting married. And now we've got 2 lovely children, which is fantastic. The good thing is, I think your family brings you back to reality. And yeah, I mean, we're all human, and as a family unit, I think all families go through different things, and you know, you've got to approach all, you know, the circumstances and difficulties and the good times and bads and all that type of thing. We all go through it, you know. So like any family, we're like anyone else, and you know, that brings you back to reality.
You go. Have you got a booger? That was Steve. Taught him to play booger.
And I think if you have Rita and Serge as your parents, you probably wouldn't step out of line too far anyway. They'd cut you down to size. But he's remained a very well-balanced person in terms of his football and his working life. It's great joy to see him that he's been able to balance that, and certainly a great father and husband. And now with his young family, they're a pretty special family.
Say hello. Hello, that's it. There you go. Say hello. Oh, we're pretty close. We all, you know, he's got 3 sisters, but, you know, they used to fight, but at the same time, they're fairly, you know, close-knit. And I think because we always did everything as a family, and I think probably that's, you know, it's important to him. His children is his main thing. I mean, just loves his children.
They're a huge responsibility, but you enjoy that responsibility, and you know, the kids are just fantastic. They're so honest, and they do something different every day. And you know, you miss them when they're not there, but sometimes when they're there, you think, oh, can I have a bit of spare time? You know, but they're fantastic. They really are. I mean, they put life into perspective, and everything that I think I've hoped them to be, and Jo has also, and we really enjoy our time with them.
Although young now, it's inevitable. Any offspring of a Silvagni will attract attention from the football world at some point.
Whether they play footy or not, I'm not too sure. Like, if they love playing the game, that's good and well. But obviously, you know, you can only tell them to enjoy the game, and you know, hopefully, you know, they enjoy it if they're good enough to play it, and if they just appreciate what footy and the mateship they get out of playing that game. I think that's all you want from it. And obviously they might come up against those type of pressures along the way, but it's something that, you know, if it does happen, well, we're just going to have to cope with it.
Brown, well, they've been the 3. And here's another one. Oh, look at that. What a mark, Sauce. One-hander.
It's funny, like, I look back to when I went to Ireland as a 16-year-old with Don Scott. He had a great saying, you know, you're up here and you're down here and you've got nothing in between. That's what he used to do, you know. It's quite right that, you know, if you could just keep a consistent line along the way and play that way, I think, yeah, you should be happy with that. You know, you don't have to be up here all the time, but you stay away from being down low and just keep an even line of your footy career. And, you know, I'm quite sort of comfortable with that at the moment. I think I've sort of, you know, done that over my time playing footy.
It's Silvagni at the back. Oh, he's dropped it now. He's got it. Steve Silvagni bends it back. Yes, a goal.
We are taking like senders to run the no, not very playing. Let the famous old up blue.
Turnbull, beaten by Allen, balls in front, Camporelli, high up and under, Silvagni coming out, for a goal! How about that one? Unbelievable!
And here they go again, Silvagni, the long loping strides, passes everywhere.
Shanahan right with him, wearing him like a Carlton jumper. Silvagni recovers, snaps for goal, good effort! What a goal by Stephen Silvagni!
Foot straight, off the left foot, he's had 14 kicks and 6 handballs. What a spectacular mark by Silvagni.
Silvagni! Not bad for a fullback, is he?
Well, Sos, you've done just about everything in football. You've played in premierships, you've been named in all Australian teams, played for the state, named as the fullback of the century. Where would you rank that in terms of all your achievements in football, being named as fullback of the century?
Pretty tough, really. I mean, definitely below playing in a premiership. Definitely below probably club best and fairest. And then it probably fits in there.
So do you think the real significance of being named fullback of the century will only dawn on you perhaps 5 or 10 years after you finish playing?
Yeah, I think you're probably right there, because I think you play footy to play in premierships, and footy's a team game, and you just do so much together with your teammates that at the end of the day, after the pre-seasons and the trainings and the games you get through, to be carrying the cup around after grand final, or on grand final day, when you do your lap of honour, that's when you realise what footy's all about.
Is it one of football's myths that you were embarrassed about being named in the team of the century?
No, I was at that time. As I've said, purely because I felt I was at 28 years of age and I still thought that I had 3 or 4 years of football that, or probably quality football left in me, and particularly when I sort of stood up there on stage with the rest of the side, that I stood next to Nichols and Bobby Skilt and Ted Whitten, these type of guys. And, you know, here I am at 28 years of age, probably in my prime at that stage, but sort of hadn't really finished my career. And, you know, I felt that quite embarrassing.
What about the discussion that took place afterward? Did that affect you at all?
It was always probably going to happen, and I've always said that, you know, you put another. I don't think there might have been half a dozen selectors there. I think the team would have changed by 25%. I mean, I'm not too sure whether Malcolm Blight got into that side. I don't think he did. You know,
no, I don't think he did.
Tony Lockett. I wonder if they'd had their say again, whether Tony Lockett would be in that side. You know, so there's players that missed out in that team and players that got in that team that probably wouldn't be there. And, you know, I was just fortunate that, you know, I was one of those players that were chosen.
You mentioned Tony Lockett. You've played you've played against some of the greatest full forwards we've ever seen in the game. In your era of playing at full-back, you've had Lockett, Dunstall and Ablett. Who would you rate the toughest out of those three?
I think all on their given day, they are very similar players. I mean, all great plays, all unstoppable plays. I mean,
did you ever feel helpless against either of them?
Oh yeah,
you did.
All of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just times where the ball's coming down and you mightn't be on song, and you know they carve you apart basically, and it's very hard to say which one's the toughest one or which one was the hardest one. But I clearly take back, I go back, I should say, to my early days, and it probably is the one thing that hits home to me, that when I played on Lockett, I was, you know, I would have been 78, 80 kilos. I'm up against a guy who was 100 kilos, and who was so powerful, strong, intimidating, and was a sensational player. And purely because of my weight and my strength, didn't match up against Tony, that he was probably one that I had most difficulty with, particularly in my early days.
And quick.
He's quick. I mean, people don't realise how quick he was. And we often forget how really good he was. And I think you know, there were times there that he was intimidating sides that, you know, guys just got out of his way. I mean, some guys that would usually sit in a hole, you come up against St Kilda, they weren't there. You know? And
so you found it difficult to get blokes back into those spaces?
Oh, don't worry about that. But the thing is, and I keep sort of looking back at it, even when he went to the Swans, even in his last couple of seasons, they were still dropping a guy in the hole to stop Tony Lockett. And I think, you know, when you look at that, to say that this guy still was kicking 70 goals in his last season, he was still a champion player, and that's how good he was.
Another great mate of yours has been Craig Bradley. He's the skipper of the Carlton Football Club now. Amazing to think that he's still playing at 37 years of age. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, he's basically a freak, really. I mean, to be playing at 37 years of age is just a huge effort. There's no question, I reckon, if he wanted to, he could go again next year, because his running ability is just so phenomenal. And I just think the way his consistency over the last probably 15 years, I think he's probably finished in the top probably 5 best and fairest at the club on probably 10 to 12 occasions, and I think that's a real genuine side of a champion player.
Are you surprised then that he's not really considered to be an out-and-out champion? I mean, in some quarters, some people have probably don't rate him as highly as a lot of the Carlton people do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know why that's the case, because he came from Port Adelaide, and I think he played about 99, 98 games there. He won 3 best and fairest over there. And that's huge for someone who started, I think he started at 15, 16 years of age there as well, and to have won 3 best and fairest in that time, and then came to Carlton, has won 3 best and fairest at Carlton. He's probably come runner-up on 3 or 4 occasions, you know, and obviously, I mean, there would have been players at your club, Tim, that people wouldn't realise how hard or how good of a player they actually were, and for some reason it's happened to Craig, but I think if you look at his statistics and what he's achieved along the way, it'd tell you that he is a champion player also.
In the time you've been at Carlton, is Kernahan and Bradley the 2 standout players?
Yeah, they're 1 or 2 at least. I think like Greg Williams, some of his football was phenomenal. I think Kenny Hunter, you know, some of the feats and efforts and the courageous moments he came through were sensational. So I've seen, because when you're part of successful sides, I think you see so many great players along the way. And I played with a guy by the name of Peter Dean. Although he didn't have the flair of those players, I consider him one of the great players also, purely because he was a total team man, and you just knew that you could rely on him, you know, to back you up.
Let's take you back to your childhood growing up. What are your early memories of going to the football with your dad as a little kid?
Yeah, I think my earliest ones, I think I probably started going to footy when I was about 4 to 5 years of age, and back then actually Dad used to, was involved in the media. He used to do a bit of commentating with the ABC, and so I used to go with my uncle or my grandfather, but then I think about in 1978 he actually became a assistant coach at Carlton and coached the reserves also, so that's when I started to go to training and mingle with all the players, so that was just a bit of a dream come true being a youngster.
So your football career really has been just an extension of your childhood, hasn't it?
Yeah, basically, yeah, been around the club, well, since, as I said, since 1978, so quite a few years.
And how has it changed, football, in that time?
Professionalism has certainly come into play. You know, I just remember back in the late 70s, 80s, the amount of alcohol that was that was actually drunk. But I mean, we saw some great players back then, Tim, and I think in those days you probably had 2 or 3 teams that were absolute super sides, and then the competition basically fell away. Where I think today, other than probably Essendon, who had an outstanding season last year, I think the competition's quite even across the board, and you certainly got an even spread of good sides in the competition.
We talk about culture in football clubs all the time. Your club has a winning culture. It's a blue blood culture. How does the club, do you feel, indoctrinate its players with that? I think it's pretty important, Tim, that you have your senior players around. We've been fortunate that we've held on to our senior players, guys that played to about 32, 33 years of age. So you've always got those leaders at the club, which filter down over the years. And so when a young kid comes through, they see that the leaders of the club do the right thing along the way. And as they have done at probably Essendon, you know, they learn the culture very early, and it's just filtered through. And I think that's and when it's a winning way, it filters through to the kids as well quite early, and as long as you can keep that, I think it's important, and that your side at least has a chance each season to achieve success. Is that winning way, that culture, is that just a football department culture, or do you think that that is extended to the administration of the club? Because the club's always had a strong administration, in particular John Elliott's presence within the club.
Oh yeah, I think it's pretty important all the way through. Obviously I think Carlton have had hiccups along the way in administration, but they sort them out very quickly. They haven't had that sort of over the last probably 10, 15 years, but it is important. I mean, I think the administration side of things got to be very sound for the team's sake and just the harmony of the club, and that's important. I think that you'll see successful clubs when they do win a premiership, that's probably the norm.
They sort them out quickly because John Elliott just said this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah, basically, a bit of a dictator.
A necessary dictator?
No, listen, he's been, to be honest, he's a guy that's passionate about Carlton, and obviously there are things along the way that you mightn't agree with, but for a guy that probably puts in 30 to 40 hours a week on club issues and doesn't get paid for it, it means that he really does love the Carlton Footy Club. So, you know, he's probably #1 priority is for the club's sake, and I think someone who puts that amount of time deserves the right to have a say along the way.
On the issue of having a say, I mean, he's made some outlandish statements at times that have probably, most people in the football community have felt that would backfire on the team.
Yeah.
Have you cringed at times with some of the things that he's actually said?
Yeah, I must admit I have. But I mean, when you play, you just want everything to be, you know, low key. Basically, I think most coaches and players would just like to keep everything low key. But obviously, there are people within the club and issues that come up, and when they start mentioning other sides, and you've got to come up against that side, you know, 2-4 weeks down the track, coaches use that. And you know, you'd like things not said about other sides, but obviously, you know, the emotion and passion of some people, you know, they become not overawed, but more so they get very passionate about it, and they say things that may affect the side down the track.
86, you played off in the grand final, Carlton, but you lost. 87 was the year that you played in your first grand final, and a winning grand final.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was amazing. it had a lot to sort of prove to myself and other people, and it was a dream come true. I was 19, 20 years of age, and looking back on it, to get a grand final that quickly, I was very fortunate, and it was a special moment because through the season, we had a couple of guys that were ill in Peter Motley and Des English, so it was more so not only your personal, achievement that you'd come across, but also doing it for a couple of guys that were quite special to everyone at the club.
There's no doubt there was a lot of emotion in that performance that year. Can you just talk to me about that tragic accident that Peter Motley was involved in, the night that occurred?
Yeah. Listen, I remember we used to have a team meeting on a Thursday night, and we're just sitting around. I was sitting with Braddles and Motts, and we're speaking. Well, we hope the meeting's over soon because they wanted to get home and watch Miami Vice. That was a ritual sort of on a Thursday night, but obviously things didn't go according to plan that night, and the accident happened to Peter. So it was quite a shock because we basically read about it in the paper, and it was on the radio that that Motts was in an accident. Guys didn't really know how well he was travelling at that stage, and as news sort of filtered through and we're ringing up the club, actually we found out how serious the accident was. So it was quite emotional for everyone.
What about the coaches and the people that have had the most influence on you throughout your 300 games?
Yeah, I think coaches. I think I've had 4 coaches over my time at Carlton, senior coaches, and I think I've picked up everything a little bit from all 4 of those coaches. I had David Park in my first year, and I think you learn a hell of a lot from your first coach in senior footy. And then I had Wolsey, who was probably one of the hardest coaches going around, and I think he rode me fairly hard, and he was a tough coach. But I think what he did really, not so much when he was coach, but down the track, what he taught me really came to fruition down the track. And then I had Jezza, who was my boyhood idol. Loved watching Jezza play, and for him to come and coach, I would have done anything for Jezza. And then we had Parko, who came back, and now Wayne Britton, who's basically a mixture of those 3 coaches.
Why do you think Walls rode you so hard? Because perhaps he played with your dad? Did you think that he didn't want to show any favouritism towards you at all?
No, I don't think he just rode me so hard. I think he rode the players very hard. Obviously, he might have had a handful of players that he really rode, and I might have been one of those players. But overall, it wasn't as if he was just isolating me and getting into me or rode me. He basically was a very hard coach, and he demanded a hell of a lot. And he got the most out of his players at that stage. But then, obviously, if you do that, there's probably a limited lifespan of coaching, and then it starts to wear off a little bit, and I think that's what happened.
Is that why he got sacked?
Oh, I don't know why he got sacked. I think that obviously the performance wasn't there. That's why I think he got sacked. But that was, I'm just saying that as a coach you can ride your players so much, but then you got to pull back a little bit.
But are you saying the players revolted at that time?
Oh, I wouldn't know, because I was only a junior.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell you yes or no.
What about probably one of the more unusual happenings in your career, I would think, may be David Parkin coaching, but handing over the reins to almost the person that he anointed as his successor in Wayne Britton. Was that unusual from a playing perspective, given that you'd been there a long time, to see David Parkin almost disappearing into the background and this other younger coach coming through and taking the reins?
There was. It was unusual because it's probably the first time it's ever happened, and to know that David had taken not just a little step back, it was a big step back, and the fact that David was still known as our senior coach and Wayne was his understudy, was probably a bit of a concern to some players, but I think they handled it very well, and they had a very good relationship between each other, and it worked quite well. And thankfully for Wayne's sake, that he had the opportunity to coach the side, which probably gave him the job at Carlton this year.
Why do you think David Parkin did that?
Why?
Do you think he was burnt out as a coach?
I'm not too sure. I've always rated David Parkin as an excellent coach, and I've got a hell of a lot to thank him for my career. Coached us in a grand final. I think when a coach takes you to a grand final and you win it, you know, you really do owe that person a hell of a lot. And listen, I think that David genuinely is a football person, and he wants to do the right thing by the football club and football in general. And I believe he may have thought that, you know, his time was up. He's probably said it over the last, you know, 6 to 12 months that he could see the end in terms of his coaching. And you know, Wayne was there at the right time, and he basically probably did the right thing. He thought he was doing the right thing, and I think he's done that.
Talking about the end, we're just about there. Just one final question: will you play on next year?
Yeah, I hope to, Tim. I mean, obviously, the last sort of half of this season is going to determine, you know, what I do. But I'd like to think that I've got a year left.